Hey, look, it helps if you unmute yourself. What's up, my writing weirdos? Hey, it is BC, and of course you are on my channel, BC Brown Books, where we like to get weird about words in the ways that only writers can. We write them, and we talk about writing them. And tonight, I'm going to write them live on screen during our writing sprints, while you listen to my partner scream in the background because he's playing Overwatch with a bunch of people. And yeah, so we're also going to do writing sprints in 20-minute increments tonight. As far as during the writing sprints, I will actually be showing the manuscript that I am working on right now, which is Project Flambeau, which is my co-writing or my collaborative book project with author Sako Tumi. And I will be pantsing my way through a vague-ass plot point that all it said was, we need something about this here.
All right.
And it has like zero description behind it. So I'm going to be figuring that out, and you guys are going to be watching me stumble over it. So my word counts probably tonight are not going to be that spectacular, but it doesn't matter because every word written is a good word. And with that said, I'm going to do a little bit of brief promo, so enjoy this. All right, weirdos. Of course, tonight, as you all know, we're doing writing sprints, 20-minute increments, where we chat in between for God knows however long, depending on whatever the chat is going to be about. I want to say hi to some of our weirdos that are in the chat at the moment. Carrie H. Author coming in first on the chat, which is awesome. And then, of course, Devin Cutting. Can't talk all of a sudden. Devin Cutting. And it is not a chat. It is not a sprint. It is not Authortube without Devin, in my opinion. Carrie's not sure how long they can stick around because on about 4 hours of sleep, I feel you, girl. I'm same. So last night, I did the Authortube sleepover, of course, with on Savvy Writes Books channel, Savvy Leiser's channel. And I stayed up way too late. And then, of course, I got to just that right point of exhausted where I couldn't fall asleep once I went to bed. So I was up till, I don't know, after 2:30 in the morning. I had to be up at like 4. I worked all day, of course. And then I crashed for like a 45, 50-minute nap, like right after work. And yeah, so I'm going off of about the amount the same. But you're determined to get some work done, and so am I. Hey, Al, good to see you. Sako may be here. I did a bad thing because I was going on so little sleep today that I forgot to send her the invite for the stream earlier than an hour ago. So usually she's really good about popping in after she gets the message that, yeah, here's the link to the stream. So, hey, RK, always good to see you. One of my faves. Bonnie, yay, needs to do some writing tonight. I'm glad I am on the train for doing some writing tonight too. And of course, one of my favorite comic book writers and artists in the house, Debbie Renaud. I never get tired of your avatar, Debbie. Never get tired of your avatar. So yeah, like I said, we are going to do those. I got distracted. That's probably going to happen a lot tonight. We're going to do 20-minute writing sprints, of course. And since I don't really have Sako to chat with and delay me from getting started right away, because usually I'm a chatty bitch and like to chit chat for forever. And again, you guys are going to hear a whole lot of exclamations, explicatives, and all sorts of other weird sounds in the background as my partner is in the office behind me playing Overwatch with online with a bunch of people. So, and he's frustrated as hell, apparently, because it does not sound like the game is going well. Ooh! Devin got his customized URL yesterday! Woo! I like the customized URLs. I was so excited when I finally got one. I was just I need everybody to get me to 100 subscribers so I can get a customized URL because I'm tired of this yada, 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 yada URL. It just sucked. I hated it. Yes, always great to see you, RK. All right, so without further ado, we might as well go ahead and do this writing thing that, people like to talk about and people say is a good thing to do. And stuff like that, and kind of the reason that y'all are here tonight. So let me go ahead and get my screen shared for this evening. So like I said, I'm going to let you all fabulously see my screen. Let's get this taken off here so you guys can actually see my whole screen. Don't judge me for my bookmarks, for my copious amount of bookmarks. And we are going to get this started. We will be doing, like I said, 20-minute sprints. Hey, Daya, good to see you. Glad you could come. All right, so let's get this started. And we are going to be writing in 3, 2, 1. One with a slight delay while I click a button. Sprint! Beep, 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 beep. All right, weirdos. How did everybody do during that particular sprint? I didn't do too badly. If you had glanced up at the screen at all, I did a few more words than 434 words. Because I did 434 on that section I was working on, the really big ass beat point that just said, hey, we need to add something about this here. And, finished up the discovery writing on it. And then I wrote like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more words on the start of another sentence of fleshing out an area that Sako had written previously. So what we've gone and done during this project is kind of, while she's been actively writing a section, I've been going back and editing the section that she did previously, and then vice versa. And so now what we're doing is we're kind of taking a look at each other's pieces that we've written, and because we've kind of done 2 pass-throughs of editing now, so we're kind of going back through each other's sections and seeing where we can add descriptors, because we have a lot of talking head syndrome and we have a lot of white room syndrome going on in the manuscript so far, because obviously we're only in the first draft. So we're just trying to go through and see what we can get done, what we can add, and where we can kind of elaborate on things, and if that leads us into any additional plot points that we need to do, or more beats that we need to do, or missed plot holes, things like that. So we had a couple of folks pop in. I can't seem to make StreamYard do its thing. We had Dia was the last to pop in that I said hey to. Dal Cecile Rudo is here. Hello, my weirdo writing, singing sister. Al is here and just said they added sticky tabs to their Amazon basket. Sick of searching the whole notebook for one story. Was much easier when I did one notebook a story. Yeah, and I had responded, and I'm just impressed that you can handwrite anything. I haven't been able to handwrite since a long time ago, since I was a teenager. So I'm impressed that you can handwrite anything. I get this automatic like mental block the instant I like start to put a pen to paper. I can take some notes. I can like write down 1 or 2 sentences that are in my head, but I can't make it flow more than a couple of sentences or notes. Laura Nettles is here. Good to see you, Laura. Carrie finished chapter 1 of the outline 2.0 for book 3. I love that. Chapter 1 of outline 2.0 for book 3. It sounds like it's very how my brain works. Laura is listening to the yellow wallpaper for the first time. Never heard. Don't know what it is. I'm going to have to look it up. Dia got 585. Good strong start right there. Laura's saying if there's any inspiration to pull for my own wallpaper story, I have in betas right now. That's good. Bonnie cranked out not quite half a page. Doesn't matter. Have not quite half a page more than what you had before you got started tonight, which is good. Very, very good. So yeah, so like I said, we're Sako and I are just kind of going back through each other's sections and kind of seeing where we can elaborate on giving more descriptors or finding any continuity issues, because we were editing before, but we weren't really looking for continuity issues. So we are going back through that and making sure that our characterizations all match up, that our characters are reacting how they would react in certain situations, and making sure that that's all streamlined and good to go together. And I know a lot of this is probably going to add, it's the good thing is it's going to add quite a bit of word count for us, which is a good thing, because it is the story right now is a little on the light side. We're at about 35,000 words for the first draft, which is way short of an actual novel. Sako she likes to keep in the ballpark of about 75 to 80,000 words for a novel. I am willing to go on the lesser side of about 60 to 65,000 words per novel, depending on the genre, of course. But 35 is really, really low for us. I'm not too worried though, like I was telling Sako before, because we're only on draft 1 and we're only midway through draft 1. So we have a lot of places to add word count easily, and to go back through and even add more arcs, more story arcs and character arcs, and possible subplots if we really, really wanted to. We have one strong subplot that we could do with this whole resistance group that we name drop and we introduce them sort of briefly. They're not necessary for the story. They'd be great for world building, and they could have their own nice little breakaway subplot that she and I would have to put more thought into, but it could be done. We just haven't put the thought into it. Carrie is going to duck out and journal before bed. Fingers crossed Tiny Human sleeps tonight because I am tired. Yeah, I don't blame you. If you only got 4 hours, I know how tired I am. Tonight I am ridiculously tired. But the writing waits for no writer. It's got to be done. And, plus I like hanging out with all of you. It warms my little writer heart, my little weirdo heart, to be joined by others. Ray is just joining in. Sorry you're late. Oh, don't be sorry. We only got started like 32 minutes ago, and I rushed right on into my first sprint for the night. So don't worry about it at all. Renee finished book 1 outline in the romance work in progress. Nice. Very nice. So yeah, so I know Renee is now doing the romance. What's everybody else like? What genres are you writing in? I'm kind of interested. Or if you're not writing for adults, are you writing middle grade? Are you writing YA? Are you writing for kids? I always think it's interesting because I hang out with so many writers who are in my same genres, that they're in paranormal mysteries, or they're in paranormal horror, like Sako is. They're in they cover urban fantasy or epic fantasy or dark fantasy. So I think it's just kind of fun when we can kind of all collaborate on or all kind of reveal what we're working on and what areas we work on. Laura is journaling now. Hopefully she'll get more feedback soon from betas. I love my betas. My alphas and my betas are the best people in the world. And going through the alpha and the beta process is some of my favorite. It's just some of my favorite part of writing, because I love getting the real world feedback, the actual reactions to my writing, and being able to decide if I'm going to adapt to it or not. Laura is writing horror. Awesome. Hey Yaza, good to see you. Ray is writing middle grade fantasy, Otherworld. Nice. Al is writing superhero and apocalyptic. Yaza's dystopian comedy is the current project. Cool. And Laura says adult horror, gothic, cosmic, fantastical, strange creature, alternate world horror. I am down for it. You're talking my exact I really love my urban fantasy, gothic world. I don't do the horror so much, but I like stories that have an aspect of horror to it. Have the creepy, give you the Wiggins kind of horror to it. Daya is working in sci-fi. I have always wanted to write sci-fi. Sci-fi and horror, I think, are 2 of the harder genres to write in fiction. Sci-fi, because there are so many technical elements. Even if you're writing soft sci-fi or fantastical sci-fi, there's still a lot of moving components that have to be considered, and still a lot of realism that has to be considered, because you can only stretch the imagination so much before people just find things absolutely unbelievable. And as far as horror, I'm just impressed by anybody that can maintain that level of suspense, because I can maintain a level of tension and suspense with a murder mystery, because that's curiosity and speculation, but the suspense and the tension involved in horror really plays on like human emotion and really plays on our deepest fears. And so it's hard to kind of maintain that and keep that going with other elements thrown into the story without it just being an absolute fright fest kind of story. Debbie says Wolf Moon is YA supernatural. Cool. Doll likes horror, and from all the fantasy genres, UF is the one I read. Urban fantasy. A lot of people really will cross over into urban fantasy, which I think is cool. It doesn't seem to matter if they're a fiction reader, then it seems like they're like willing to give urban fantasy a shot, because it's still fantastical and it still maybe has supernatural elements or magical elements or sci-fi elements, but it's not as hard, and it's still contemporary based. So it still gets the benefit of people being able to really identify with it. Yeah, doll. Sci-fi requires some research. No matter what, it requires some level of research to it. And Doll says, horror is new to me, so it's harder for me to write. I just can't do it. I've tried over the years. I can't seem to come up with a good actual horror plot. Like, unless I just go straight up like apocalyptic zombies overrunning the world kind of a thing. That I can do, but I can't seem to come up with an intricate plot that that really has a lot of like drive to it. Dia says sci-fi does require rigorous world building, which I'm struggling with right now. It happens. It happens. I think so. I'm of the opinion that every story requires rigorous world building, or should have rigorous world building, in order to make it as good as you possibly can. I can't think of too many genres that don't require it. It doesn't matter if you're writing. I mean, I guess maybe if you're writing for children, you don't have to do as much world building, but you still do have to do some world building, of course. And I just think that all world building should be very vigorously done. Okay, so let's do another sprint, because I need to get some more words in. And yeah, so let's do another sprint. Go ahead and share my screen. I don't know why it suddenly stopped doing that. I'll take this off. Okay, let's reset this timer for another 20 minutes. And we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Sprint. Beepity beep, beepity beep, beepity beep. All right, how do we do? I have no idea what my word count was on that, because if anybody had glanced up at the screen, here, I'll share it again so y'all can see it. So everything that's in black over here, is what Sako had written previously during like the 0 draft. And everything that's in red is what I've gone in and fleshed out and added during this particular scene. Some of it's just a little more description. Some of it's like mild editing stuff, like taking passive voice into active voice in order to balance out passive and active voice, because you don't want too much of one or too much of another. You've got to have a good balance of both. Some of it was catching editing stuff that we just didn't catch the first time around, stuff like that. Anyway, so yeah, it's a good deal of red that I put in there. So I'm going to say it's a good deal of words that time around. So did pretty well. There are some pretty good chats going on. Dia was saying that they were biased with world building, since they're having trouble with world building. So they might be biased with sci-fi world building specifically, because that's what they're struggling with, thinking that it needs to be more rigorous. I don't disagree, actually. I don't think it's because you're biased because you're struggling with it right now. I think it's a matter of sci-fi world building is actually very difficult. You have technology to deal with, you have cultures to deal with, you have alien races to deal with, you have the pure science behind it, you have the fantastical science behind it, you have the imaginary or the imaginary, whatever, like the future science that could be based off of it. So yeah, I think. So Yaza and Dia were discussing for a little bit about whether it was trouble coming up with the ideas or actually putting the ideas into words. Dia says coming up with the ideas, which is what I have trouble with most of the time in my stories. Like I can come up with a character on a dime. Like so many years of role playing and DMing, especially for DMing, I've had to come up with non-player characters, NPCs, like on the spur of a moment based on the needs of the game that I didn't come up with in previously. So I can come up with a character and their motivations and their backstory and all of that stuff immediately. Wrapping a character into a plot or wrapping a plot around a character, because I think plots need to be character driven, that is more difficult. And then so having the idea for the character is easy. Having the idea for an overall plot, that is more difficult. And then once you start to get into subplots and more character arcs and things of that nature, tends to be difficult. AlleyCat107 is here. Good to see AlleyCat. Yaza says, so Yaza's tip is it usually helps them to draw it up and you just start to fill in the gaps. So there's a torn wallpaper exposing brick, or there is shattered glass littered all over the alleyway, fire hydrants, etc. So that's really exceptional. Like when it comes to the world building, I tend to tackle it from the point of view of the character itself. So I will start with, okay, here's my character. I know what they do. I've got a 21-year-old female whose motivations are to live a normal life outside of her supernatural ability that she has. And if anybody is recognizing this particular plot, it's because it's the third book of my Metaphysical Chronicles series that I am currently writing. So it is to live a normal life outside of her supernatural ability. So what is her supernatural ability? And how does that fit into the world? Well, in this particular world, supernatural abilities are recognized by the courts, and they're recognized by individuals that are striving for civil rights. So kind of think like how the X-Men struggled for civil rights in like the X-Men Marvel comics and movies, etc. Well, Fox movies, but now Marvel movies, because they own them finally again. So then I go from there, and I go from, okay, well, what do these supernatural abilities look like? And what types of supernatural abilities am I going to include? Once I know the supernatural abilities I'm going to include, I know kind of a general, very vague and very nebulous, but a general basis of my structure for the world. I know that there's not magic in the world, that everything is science-based, because I've got telekinesis and psychometry and clairvoyance, psychic abilities, ESP type stuff. So it's less magical and it's more science-based. So I know that about my world. And then once I know that, I can kind of narrow it down from there. So I go from the much bigger picture than Yaza does, apparently. And I go from the 30,000 foot, and then I it on in. Yaza, I think, focuses on a thing and out and expands out, which is kind of cool. So Daya said they just realized that they didn't mention in their original plan how much work was needed to make this universe come alive. Yeah. So I'm dealing with that, Daya, specifically on the dark political fantasy series that I'm writing and have been writing for a very long time. The reason it's not come out is because the universe itself needs so much more work in order to make it plausible for the reader. Even though there are wizards and inherent magical abilities and different spherical astral planes of existence and all of this other crazy stuff, there's still all of this world building that has to be done to actually, all this work that has to go into the universe just to make the universe plausible for the reader and to let them suspend their disbelief. So Daya says, for example, such story is happening in such world with highly evolved aliens, but how actually is their tech and everything? So I've got to work on that for the book to make sense. Yes. Suspension of disbelief. I have this conversation with a lot of, I hate to use the term newbie or rookie or fledgling writers who think it is perfectly acceptable to write off something being implausible or illogical because it's a fiction story. I could just make it up and it's fine. But I caution all of them when I speak to them. You will have fans that no matter how loose you get with your science or loose you get with your logic for the world, you're going to have fans that will break it down and they want the logical in the illogical. They just want it. For instance, my first book, which is now out of print, I had this, for lack of a better comparison, I had this parasitic species that once they impregnated the host body and the creature was born, I had goofed. I hadn't given the parasite. I hadn't given the parasitic entity that was born out of that impregnation. I hadn't given them any traits from the host race, from the host species. And that just doesn't happen. And science is science, whether you're doing science fiction and you're really stretching it, or you're doing, unless you have some type of clone that is implanted into a host, there isn't a way. There will always be chromosomal transfer and genetic transfer between a symbiotic relationship, well, not even a symbiotic, but a parasitic relationship. And I had fans nail me on it, like absolutely nail me on it. And I had to reconsider it. When that book went out of print, which for some people that don't know, that is the dark political fantasy that I am actually writing right now and have been rewriting for a number of years now. I had to go back and I had to explore the science behind it. I had to be able to explain why there was not chromosomal or genetic transfer. And I couldn't do it. Once I got into the science of it, I realized that there wasn't a way to actually explain it other than saying, well, it's fiction and I can do what I want. But you can't. There still has to be a logical path to the illogical. Even Douglas Adams in Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, which you all know I love because, hello, tattoo. Like, there's still logical in the illogical of that world. And that world is illogical as all get out. But yeah, so it is. So it still has to be there. Laura finished listening to the short story of the Yellow Wallpaper. Good stuff. May have to check it out. I'll admit, I don't listen to audiobooks just because of my hearing issues. I can't say that. I don't often listen to them. Sometimes when I'm in the car, I will listen to them, but they have to be short stories and they have to be usually something kind of whimsical that, I'm not really focusing on or paying too much attention to, because I do have to focus on just hearing the words themselves and making sense of them. Oh, it's on YouTube. That's good to know. Hi, Diane. Good to see you. It's like Jane Eyre. I like Jane Eyre. People saying hi to everybody. Hi back and forth. Alley Cat is working on homework that's due today. Yeah, I'm one of those homework people. People saying hi. Ray started making late night coffee and missed most of the sprint, but started reading a book to fill the time. That's perfectly acceptable. I probably would have had to have gotten up during the sprint because I realized I was still drinking my caffeinated water. And I'm exhausted because I got like next to no sleep last night, and had to work a full day today, plus some. But if I continued to drink the caffeinated water, like much later than nowish, I would have been completely hosed. So my roommate, on the first sprint, he was like, hey, I'm going to run the store. You want anything? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to be real weak. I'm going to be weak. I'm not going to have willpower, and I'm going to break down and get a non-caffeinated soda. And y'all can like yell at me now because I know I keep saying I'm trying to break my soda addiction, and I really am. I'm actually getting much better. I haven't been drinking caffeinated soda, and I'm on to just strictly like Sprite every so often, every couple of weeks. And now that I'm talking about it, my little addict brain has to go and drink some. Dia did manage to get 268 words during that sprint. That's good. So see, for struggling with it, you still managed to get some words, which is good. Diane just finished doing a book biz that they wanted to get through. Oh. Yeah, they're all things that really need attention when you're world building. Diane's doing some reading. People saying hi, chatting back and forth. Knee deep in world building again. Yeah, politics. So I hesitated for a while to call my dark fantasy. I was just calling it dark fantasy for a long time, to call it a dark political fantasy, because there are more machinations of a political nature within a political fantasy than what I thought my series had. But I do have alpha readers who have been helping me with this project for a number of years. I have a stable of alpha readers, 10 of them that are amazing human beings. And they've really been helping me out. And they kept pointing out the political machinations, like overarching, like through the whole theme of the story. And I was like, oh shit, I guess it is really a political it is really a dark political fantasy, because that is, while there's this great big supernatural and cosmic story behind it, there's this prophecy and all of this good junk and all of this religious theological like debate and heads butting and stuff like that. It basically boils down to one kingdom trying to overthrow another, and there's a war because of it. And there are all sorts of political like shenanigans happening in the background and stuff. So yeah, it's a lot to it. Laura says, with my adult sci-fi, I created the solar system and the history of the original inhabitants before I started writing. Had an epiphany 22K in, and world built 100 more hours, still not enough. Yeah. World building, sometimes it just never ends. Dia. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, world building sometimes doesn't end. And that's good, because so my dark fantasy series, it was only going to be one book. And once I got into more world building, it became 2 books. And once I finished world building, I realized it was actually 3. And I can probably get a 4th one out of it, honestly. Kind of the same thing happened with my paranormal mystery series, the 2 that are out right now. It was only supposed to be 1 book, became 2 books, and now it's on its 3rd book, and I have a 4th book outlined, ready to go, and a 5th book that is like vaguely brainstormed and has a skeleton outline to it. And I could probably start writing on both of those, but I have set myself, I have to get book 3 written before I can start playing with those other ones. So Ray says the book they're reading is an old book they haven't read yet. While they wait for their library books to be available, they're reading Enchantment by Orson Scott Card. Okay. I'm not a big... So Orson Scott Card is one of those writers that a lot of people love, and I don't. I don't know why. The world building is decent. The stories are good. There aren't too many plot element problems. There aren't too many elemental problems to it, but not really my thing. Diane gave up Mountain Dew last year, so glad they did. Ray's done so much better with drinking soda, but I drink at least 1 liter of coffee a day. I am pretty addicted to my little caffeine drop, my little Mio energy drops for my water, which is honestly, I don't know. It probably is better than soda. I don't know about its health implications, but it is helping me kick my soda, and I am addicted to it. I'll admit it. Because that's the amount of caffeine I can tolerate. I'm not a coffee drinker. I'm a tea drinker, but it's usually herbal decaf tea. And then I can't handle energy drinks at all. Diane can't handle the sugar anymore. Makes me just want to go to sleep. Yeah, I find I want to go. I go to sleep a lot. I also have difficulty. The more sugar I intake, whether I drink it or I eat it or whatever, the more difficulty I have regulating my body temperature for some reason. I'm constantly flushed and constantly feel warm the more sugar I eat. So other than my massive amount of candy addiction that I have, which I have to figure out how to curb. I love my gummy bears. Diane tries to limit to 1 coffee a day. Oh, thank you. So RK Gold dubbed these my space buns. So I'm currently, you can kind of see, I'm currently growing out my mohawk. So I've got all of this new growth from growing out my mohawk. And this is about the only thing my hair will do right now. And I like the nickname that RK gave it. It makes it sound really cute. All right. You have a good night, Laura. Thanks, Yaza. Appreciate it. Yeah, I got the mohawk because I'd always wanted one. And I just decided to go ahead and do it. And I enjoyed it. I liked it, and it was cute. But it didn't have enough versatility for me to play with my hair like I like to do. I like to change out my hair way too often. And you're kind of limited when you have a mohawk on what you can do with changing your hair. So I'm, growing it back out. All right, let's do some more sprinting, y'all. Let's bring that back up and reset the clock for 20. All right, so let's start another sprint in 3, 2, 1, sprint. Beep, 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 beep. All right. How did everybody do on that sprint? I, as you all saw, had no idea. I have no idea how many words I got in there. A few, quite a few, because if anybody had looked up at the stream, which there it is again, all the red is pretty much what I've been adding. So I feel like it was quite a bit, but since it's all hit and miss, I'm not going to go through and figure out how to add all that shit up. So yeah, doing pretty well as far as I feel on fleshing out. I'm pretty much bouncing all over the document tonight, all over the book that Sako and I are writing together. I'm just bouncing around trying to flesh things out. Right now, the scene that I'm specifically working on is the first confrontation between one of the antagonists of the story, I don't know that he is the primary antagonist of the story because he's the one that's constant throughout the story until you get to the big bad. So yeah, it's between him and the protagonist, who is our bounty hunter, our supernatural bounty hunter. And Sako did a great job with setting up the scene. It just was, like she's called it before, just a white room syndrome, and just needed more to it. I just needed fleshed out more. And speaking of Sako slides on into the chat, which she could pop onto the screen if she wanted to. She does not have to. Like I had told everybody before, I was bad, didn't send her the link until like way earlier or till way late in the day and not early in the day like I should. Everybody is happy to see Sako, and I'm apologizing for not sending the link over and being a bad host. Savy is here. So Savy writes books. If you don't all know Savy, you should know Savy. She's amazing. You should go and join her channel. And she does all sorts of small business stuff and exposes MLMs and scammy publishers is the video she's got coming out tomorrow, which is super cool. And I'm really excited to see that video. I'm going to have to catch it probably on the replay, unfortunately, because it's, during working hours for me, which sucks, but I'll do my best to try and be there. Al says that their possessed hero is so determined he broke the entrance in order to fit. That is pretty cool. I could also take that a different way because he is being possessed. So was the possessing entity? Did they break an entrance? Oh, sorry. When I'm sleep deprived, I tend to get a little dirty in my thinking. Al says that they are in need of someone to dictate to who can make sure it's in the right tense. So I have trouble with tense. It's been one of my constant struggles as a writer over the years is bouncing back and forth between tenses and the wrong tense. Once I figured out how to master my passive and my active voice, or I don't know that I master it, but I do better with it now than I used to. And once I figured out how to maintain a strict point of view, those, like my third thing that I've always had trouble with. Yeah, he's having a really good time on that game, y'all. I'm not sure if it's a good time because he sounds really frustrated, but I'm guessing it's a good time. Anyway, but so maintaining my tense is the thing that I struggle with a lot. Al says, me writing, type sentence. No, that's ring. No, that's ring too. No, that's also wrong. Gah. Slams lid shut. Do that a lot. Jasmine Anderson just got here. Good to see you, fellow writing weirdo. Ooh, Debbie took a hot bath. So should I get a little closer for a little ASMR action going on? Since you were in if I had known Debbie, I would have, changed it up a little bit, given you a little bit of my phone sex operator voice. which is what other people call it. And I found that humorous over the years. Dia got 498 words. Very nice. See, you're I mean, you might be struggling with world building, but I think you're chugging along really well, and you're turning out some pretty impressive, word counts for each sprint. So that is not a bad thing. How does one turn their brain off to write? Al, I have no idea. So this actually surprised a friend of mine when I was talking about learning how to draw, that they automatically assumed that when I wrote, my brain turned itself off and that like I just was on automatic when I wrote. And I told them that was absolutely the opposite. My brain is crazy racing and I am just desperately trying to like reel in the thoughts and get them out of my fingers fast enough and get them down onto the page fast enough. But when I draw, my brain actually shuts off and I just draw, which is kind of cool. Because as somebody who has ADHD and, I've lived with it for years and years, and while I do a decent job of, I think, hurting the stray cats that is my ADHD brain, I've never been able to just turn my brain off. The closest I come to it is when I watch TV or movies, and my brain doesn't really shut down, but it hyper focuses on story and plot and characterization and arcs and tropes, and it really, really does. It really, really does like slow down, I guess I should say. It's still racing, but it does slow down. So Al says the hero's trying to climb into the crawl space my MC is in. He can't fit. He's too big. Okay. How does one maintain focus? That is a really good Debbie. No thanks. Okay. No problem. Sorry if I made you feel uncomfortable by that. How does one maintain focus? Not really. I don't really know. For me, it's passion and the want to do. And that's how I maintain focus. It's like, but sometimes I can't. Sometimes I can't. I have ADHD, and I've known I've had it for years and years and years, decades. So yeah. Ray read more of the book, can see why some wouldn't like it, but liking the book so far. That's cool. Debbie's not a big fan of ASMR. Okay. I am not honestly either, because honestly, I can't really usually hear it. But again, hearing issues, being deaf does have its advantages and its disadvantages. Disadvantages are I don't really get the whole ASMR thing. I know it's a thing and I know what it is because people have described it to me. But I don't really get it because I don't hear it. So the advantages of being deaf, I can turn my ears off when I want and the world is silent. It's so nice. Not totally silent because I do have some residual hearing left. But yeah, I can turn my ears off and the world goes quiet for the most part. Yeah, I know. He's really having a good time. He builds his own keyboards and everything. So he's PC gaming. So he builds his own keyboards and they're pretty freaking durable. So that's great. Doesn't lose drive, just reaches over, snaps fingers. That's how we get each other's attention a lot. Like I messaged him and was like, hey, stream's live, just letting you know, kind of a thing. Like, but yeah, I saw he didn't see it and he was getting loud. And so it was just like, yeah. But that's how we get each other's attention all the time. Like he'll wave and I don't really even need to snap because he can't hear me. He's got headphones on, but it's just a thing. Dia says, thank you. Went back to my document. So went back to my world building document. So those are world building words. Good. Yeah, Jasmine, it's a thing for all of us. Like, focus. The only things I've ever been able to really focus on in my life are stories, whether they're books, TV, movies, role-playing games, things like that, and karaoke. Those are like the things that absolutely I hyper focus in on. So they've become my passions, and I try to figure out how to figure out like something enjoyable in things, so that way I can focus. But sometimes it's really hard to find something that you like out of some things, especially like work, stuff like that. But Dahl says that their biggest problem with maintaining focus is their depression and getting too close to people in situations that could harm their mental health. I'm learning my lessons. Yeah. I mean, I do live with depression as well. I take medication for it. I've had to for a very long time. That becomes a real issue with focus, because when you're depressed, you just can't focus on anything. Can't focus on anything other than how crappy you feel or how tired you are. So that, that is a problem. Oh, cool, Jasmine. That's cool. I would love to hear more. Would love to hear more about your deaf character. Oh, good. Okay, good. I'm glad that you weren't weirded out by it, Debbie. Some people do get weirded out. Like, I will, just as a joke, I will slip into that tone of voice sometimes as a joke, like leaving messages and stuff like that. And people do, they get creeped out by it. It's strange. Try to remain as calm as possible, Al, and keep writing. You'll eventually make it. That's true. Al says, I need to just cancel my Amazon publishing plans as it's stressing me out too much. So I'm just going to write, edit, and then maybe pub in a few years. Don't put that kind of stress on yourself. If you can set up a writing schedule that is just writing and editing for the purpose of eventually publishing, then leave the eventually publishing part TBD. Just like, not everybody has to be, not every writer has to, you can write for publication without setting yourself a deadline for that publication. That is perfectly acceptable. Not everybody has to be as OCD as I am about it with setting this is what I write, this is when I edit, this is when I beta, this is when I edit again, this is when I do cover art, this is when I do marketing, and this is when I publish, and this is when I do post-marketing. Like, not everybody has to set up a timeline that's as rigid as that. Just, if you're writing for publication, know that you're writing for publication and write towards that, but don't just leave that whole publication time TBD. It's perfectly fine. Yeah, lockdown, can be harmful. It's harmful on mental health. It's harmful for getting things like your medications and things that you need on a regular basis. If you're not, especially if you're in some countries like I know you are, where you're really not supposed to be going out. Because I know Al is in the UK and their lockdown is like, you should not be out, period. Like, it's not you're locked down and you're just not expected to go to work and stuff like that. But you should not go to the grocery store. You should not go anywhere. So yeah, it's a thing. The one thing that I love here is that I can have my meds delivered. So that's very helpful. Hey, Eddie, good to see you. Glad you could pop in for a little bit. A deaf girl who's a sassy girl and doesn't really take shit from anybody. Sounds vaguely familiar. Tell me more. No. Al says, writing a lot more than normal, so happy about that. I have been extremely productive, minus this last fall when I had to take some time off for health issues. I have been extremely productive this last year on getting more writing done. Like I have almost tripled my annual word count just last year with not that we in the US have ever been actually officially on lockdown at any point. Not really, because we're still allowed to go places and do things and just say fuck off to the law apparently. But I have been, self-isolating as much as possible and doing stuff like that. So my word counts have gone through the roof. Part of it's also I'm more in the Authortube community and I'm doing more streams. And so therefore I'm able to focus more because I'm doing 20-minute sprints and such. Dia says progress is always great. Yes, it is. Al says people are getting fined left and right. I really wish they were over here because we're having real issues. So I wish we would adopt more of the European methods for cracking down because yes, it's bad for mental health and stuff. And yes, I do enjoy being able to go out and being able to do things when I want to do things, but I like most people being alive. Whether or not I like those people, I like them being able to live. You need to go to the doctor's office. They know there's a pandemic happening, right? That's the real problem. And also, all of my prescription delivery stuff is through the pharmacy, not through the doctor's office. So the doctor just calls in the script to the pharmacy. The pharmacy has my correct address. Then they deliver it. Al's new goal is to finish their books, whenever that is, and work on building platform. Building platform that is where every writer should start at. Many people know I spent years and years in marketing and expressly digital marketing, and I did a lot of I did a lot of marketing work for other writers, and you absolutely have to have a platform. You have to have a basis, a fan base to start from. And before you publish anything, people have to know who you are before they give a flying fuck about what you've written or even want to give it a chance. So yeah. Al said I might start some UK sprints. No one starts sprinting for me until 4 p.m. Might start some morning UK sprints. There were for a hot minute last year. There were quite a few UK sprinters. The only streamers I know. I mean, Sage isn't UK, but she's at least South Africa, which is closer time zones. So there is Moon Bunny Creatives. Moon Bunny Creative. But she is more on Twitch now and less on YouTube. So you might have to become a Twitcher but there are more Twitchers that are more UK based that I'm aware of. Can you look for their number in the description or on the internet and give them a phone call back? Yeah, you should be able to call them. I mean, you have a pandemic. They should not require you to come in. And if they do require you to visually be present, video call. Yeah, I really have a problem with phone calls as well, mainly anxiety inducing because of my hearing and the captioning is not always great on my phone. Although this new phone, I got the Google Pixel, what was this? Google Pixel 4 something or other. The live captioning without any additional software like my computers need and everything, without any additional software, the Google Pixel 4 has amazing live captioning. Live captions your phone calls, live captions every video that pops up in your Facebook feed, live captions it all, and you can disable it whenever you want, which is just amazing. And Twitchers sounds like a great zombie name. That's true. I think your overall anxiety would be relieved and that it would relieve the anxiety of the regular phone call. But yes, Devin says, for more live streams, check out the daily playlist on Devin's channel because Devin is Tugwaddle. He's the guy with all the links. That's what Tugwaddle stands for. But now he's the guy with all the playlists of links to all the various. Yeah, and there are a ton of people every day. I've looked at Devin's playlist, and some days are heavier than others, but Even on the light days, there are usually at least 10 streamers that are on at various times. Now, granted, a lot are more, Western Hemisphere based streamers, and I don't know if that's. I don't think it's because the U.S. and Canada and the Western Hemisphere has more writers, but it's apparently we have more like YouTube obsessed, being on YouTube and doing our writing live. Okay, so speaking of that, holy hell, the stream is 2 hours already. I would not have been able to, say that. I am like super energized, which, given the fact I started the stream off practically brain dead and like a zombie, but that usually happens to me as I'm writing. I become more and more like energized by what I'm writing, and I just enjoy myself more and have tons of energy. With that said, I guess I want to say, thank you, my weirdos, for being here tonight. I always enjoy writing with all of you in the chat. It just gives me a chance to be social and get weird with everybody about words, which is what we do, honestly. So yes, in a nutshell, I am BC, and of course you're on my channel, BC Brown Books, where we do get weird about words in the ways that only writers can. We talk about them and we write them. We talk about writing them. We talk about why we write them, how we write them, and how sometimes we don't write them. I want to say thanks to everybody for being here tonight. Thanks for, chatting with me, and I will see you all on Sako's stream Monday. Sako's links are all listed below. Mine are all listed below. I've got a Patreon, a merchandise store, and all that fun stuff that you can go check out. Find me on my socials. It's pretty easy. It's pretty much BC Brown Books for pretty much everything. And I'll catch y'all later. See ya.